All right, good morning. It's Greg Meriweather. Welcome to No Apologies, Please. Rough start, man. I had a little light behind me that I didn't want to see, but nonetheless, we're here. So, man, today we got a special show lined up. We've got some ladies. It's Women's History Month, and so I decided to bring some hardworking women on the show. We're going to talk to them about what they're doing in the community. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I don't want to take their shine away, but it's going to be a great show. I'm excited to have them. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them to the show, and then they can introduce themselves. So welcome to No Apologies, Please. Here we go. What's up, ladies?
Good morning.
Ooh, in unison. I like it already. This is already working out well. So I've got Officer Samone Burris. Good morning.
Good
And then
morning,
I've got
Sam.
Assistant Chief Catherine Cummings. Thank you both for coming. Happy Women's History Month. I know it's probably been it's you know what it's tough getting your schedule together. It's a lot. It's a lot, but we made it happen. So let's start. Let's let Assistant Chief introduce herself to the community, and then Officer Burris, you can go after that.
Well, good morning, and thank you for having us on. Yes,
Absolutely.
yes, happy Women's History Month, the end of it. We've had a really good month here at the IMPD and in Indianapolis, talking about all the great work that's being done by the women on the agency. But I think back to your instruction, you asked me to introduce myself, and my name is Catherine Cummings, and I'm an Assistant Chief with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. I have worked here for 25 years, and I'm just happy to serve the community. And then
Absolutely.
Officer Simone Burris.
Well, good morning again. Thanks for having us here. Um, I am a public information officer with IMPD. I've been with IMPD for approximately 8 years. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, so this is my hometown. I love, love, love being here
Yeah,
and love serving my community. So thanks for having
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you both. You know what? It's funny, Simone. I think I was probably in there when you first started. Yeah, because you came under where you came under Roach.
I did. I did.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Familiar. You're on the far east side.
Yep. Yep. Came
Okay.
from
Good deal.
East District Middle Shift. Yes, sir.
Got you. Absolutely love it. So I'm going to start by just asking, and I'll let both of you answer. You know what? I'll start with you, Chief.
Mhm.
Just coming up in the ranks as a woman, in such a male dominant calling, I'll say. Um, Tell me the challenges that you faced, just becoming from an officer all the way to where you are now, which is, I'm going to give you some statistics. 2021, you have 824,824 U.S. officers, almost a million. It's crazy to think about. And then of that, 117,125 are women, right? And then of that, 8.3% of police chiefs are women. So it's a hard task, right? So there's almost 700,000 more men in this industry than women. So tell me how you came in the ranks.
And some days it feels that way. So, just tying on to your statistics across the nation and breaking it down into percentages, women make up about 12 to 13% of law enforcement nationwide. And as you pointed out, as you go up in the ranks, that percentage gets lower and lower.
Yeah.
IMPD currently is about 13% women, and our current command staff under Chief Bailey is 30% women. So I want to let that sink in for a second. This is the first time in history that our command staff has been 30% women, and so that is huge. Um, when I came on in the late 90s, 1999 to be specific. So that's where you get the 25 years. And a little bit of history. So women hit 12 to 13% of law enforcement nationwide in the late 80s, early 90s. So we were about where we are now when I came on. And I would say that in my time, I didn't have some of the same experiences that some of the other women did when they were talking about when they came on. They saw a lot of women in command roles and leadership. When I came on, we were kind of in a downturn a little bit. So I didn't see a lot of women in high ranking roles. And that was problematic for me. Actually, I was kind of shocked and disappointed when I got here because I grew up with parents who told me that I could do whatever I wanted to do as long as I was willing to work hard enough to get there. So nothing was going to be handed to me. I had to be willing to put in the work, do what was required. And so I came in all wide-eyed and ready to go. And I thought that as long as I did what was expected of me, as long as I did good work and I worked really hard, that the opportunities would be there. And I'm not being negative when I say that it proved to be a little bit more difficult than I expected it to be.
Sure.
And I don't think that that's a negative thing. I tell a lot of young women who come on the department, the eyes are on you. It's going to feel like the eyes are on you, and that's because the eyes are on you. And that's not a bad thing, because I tell them in the end, that makes you better at your job. That makes you more prepared to do your job. So I got promoted kind of late in my career. I was a homicide detective. I really, really enjoyed that. So out of that is when I started my promotional journey. I was a sergeant on Middle Shift East District again. Middle Shift East District, loved it. Great, great, great experience. I would not trade that supervisory experience for anything.
Sure.
So then I just started working my way up from there and testing and taking on any difficult roles that I could find, so that I had that experience base and I had that credibility of having done hard jobs on the department and working my way up. So that's a little bit about my role when I came up. It was challenging. Absolutely. It was challenging.
I could only imagine. So, Samone, since you're the less tenured, but you're doing your thing. You're coming up. Give us your journey. One thing I do want to know is really quickly what made you join the force, and I'll let Chief answer that after you're done. But I want to know what got you to join the force when you came on.
Okay. So I'm gonna do my best here. So when I came on to this career, just kind of my journey, I had some really outstanding mentors, and still have some outstanding mentors.
Sure.
I don't come from a family of law enforcement, so that was a struggle within itself, trying to navigate this police profession, but it has been very rewarding. When I first came on, Commander Williams was a sergeant at the time, and she was in recruiting. And so it was mind-blowing for me to see a African-American female that was ranked. That blew my mind. She was well-spoken. She handled herself very professionally. And so I'm like, wow, if she can do it, I can do it, right?
Sure.
So come on to the police agency, and I'm currently in the process to be promoted. So as long as everything goes well, by the grace of God, I'll be a supervisor here shortly.
Absolutely. Congrats.
But that just goes to show that if you put your mind to it, you buckle down, you do the work, this career is what you make it. Sure. I'm a mentor on this agency. I'm an instructor on this agency. I've been a part of the Leadership Academy on this agency. It's very, very important for me to pour back into others because I was poured into. Sure. It's not just about where I am, how I progress through my career. It means nothing if I can't give back to somebody else and help them along their journey. So that's just something that is a passion for me, to ensure that I am pouring into others within the agency, within my community, and my family. What made me join law enforcement? Wanting to be the change. When I was in middle school, in the beginning part of high school, I have 3 younger brothers.
Okay.
And I don't have any bad experience personally with the police. But my 3 younger brothers, their experiences were totally different than mine. They were knucklehead boys, right? Out enjoying the neighborhood, riding their bikes, running around, just being kids. Every now and then, right, it's 5 of us. Our parents were hardworking parents. So they were out, they were working, and my brothers took it upon themselves to be little little terrors in our neighborhood, but good trouble, not bad trouble, but
Good trouble. Yes. Okay. I'll roll with you.
Right, some good trouble. They were good trouble. But every now and then, some members of our community didn't understand, how we engaged and what we did to have fun.
Mhm.
So the police were called on a couple of occasions, and when they were called, their experiences were not that great.
Sure.
And so hearing their frustration, hearing them voice their frustration about how they were treated or how they felt like they were disregarded,
Hmm.
their friends were treated a different kind of way, that really bothered me.
Sure.
Again, I don't have any bad experiences with the police,
Yeah.
but it just made something stir up in my spirit, and I'm like, there has to be a different way to do things.
Sure.
And it has been said, and I think it will continue to be said, that women are great communicators, right? We know
Hey.
how to talk to people, right? We can get people to do about just anything just
Absolutely.
because we know how to communicate.
Sure.
And so for me, I thought that it was just the way the officers were communicating with my brothers. So
Yeah.
there was a communication barrier, culture barriers, but I didn't think it was something that could not be fixed, could not be changed, could not be turned in a different direction.
Yeah.
Talk to my family about becoming the police, and they're like,
Oh
whatever,
yeah. I
right?
would. I would love to be a fly on the wall.
But my dad said something very significant because I love family meetings, right? A
Sure.
family meeting is where you get to voice all your grievances and then find a solution. So during our family meeting, my father said something that just made me want to do it even more.
Hmm.
He said, daughter, when you set your mind to something, I know you're going to accomplish it.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that I could say to make you change your mind. And he said, with that, I'm praying the grace of God over you. And whatever you think is best, I support you.
I love it. I love it.
That's all I needed to hear.
There you have it. There you have it.
Yeah, everything else is history, right?
Yeah.
And so
So
here I am.
I love it. Assistant Chief. So tell me, what made you join?
So my path is a little bit different. I too don't have any family in law enforcement, so I am the first one in my family. But I do have parents who, my father was in the military, my mother is a nurse, and then my father continued being a pilot afterwards. So I grew up in a family that was giving back in ways other than law enforcement.
Sure.
But for me, I was at IU, Indiana University, Bloomington, and I was getting a journalism degree.
Oh.
And I was doing a summer internship up here in Indianapolis. So up here being from down in Bloomington.
Sure.
And, I saw a lot of work that was being done by the police officers up here in Indianapolis. And so it really, for me, if I'm going to break it down, it became, which side of the police tape did I want to be on? Did I want to be on the outside of the police tape reporting about it, or did I want to be behind the police tape doing the work? Mm-hmm. And really, I've been asked, I've talked about this a couple times this month, and I've been asked, how does someone get from being in journalism school to being in law enforcement? And really, when you look at the skills that are created, the skills that you learn when you're in journalism school, it's about, as Samone said, it's communication. So it's about talking to people. It's about writing. It's about, most importantly, asking the right questions, not just asking questions, but asking the right questions.
Sure.
And really digging in and doing that investigative work, again, back to asking the right questions. And so also along with that, I wanted a job that was going to challenge me every single day. It was going to be different every single day. And I was going to get to see things and do things and meet people that not everybody got to do every day in their lives.
Yeah.
And so really both of those scenarios, whether that's journalism or that's law enforcement, all those factors factor into both of those. Okay. And ultimately I decided to go the law enforcement route. I'm very happy that I did. But for me, that's how it got into it. And I think Samone was paraphrasing and quoting, I believe it was Gandhi, who said, be the change. What is it? Be the change that you wish to see in the world, somewhere along those lines. And I really think that the choice of going into law enforcement, which is a little bit more of a service oriented than maybe journalism, it was the right choice for me. And I have had wonderful experiences with the community and helping people along the way for the past 25 years.
Sure. So, Samone, I think it was you I saw in a post where a young man, he was having a bad day, and was it you? Somebody laid on the floor with the young man and had a conversation. It wasn't you. Okay,
No,
well, I saw this. I saw an
another
officer.
agency.
It sounds, I've seen you work though. When I look and I see things like that, people who actually take the time to get out in the community, Chief will tell you all that I'm a stickler for saying, and I blame this, and I'll have to call him because I'll say it. I'm saying it live, so I'm gonna have to call Chief Roach and tell him that he caused this in me. Chief Roach and I used to ride with him, and he would kind of cringe if he saw like officers sitting. He'd be like, "Why are they not out?" He just would. He just had that thing. But I saw a picture, a post of an officer, and a young man was having a bad day, and the officer laid on the floor next to him and kind of, just talked to him. I would like two perspectives here. What are we doing to bridge that gap? To be like, what, we're getting more into the community, becoming that community piece that's necessary, because there seems to be a split in a sense that says us against them. And I don't want to just say us as being Black, but just community versus law enforcement. Either one, but how do we bridge that gap to basically let law enforcement be community as opposed to just law enforcement? Chief, I'll let you start.
You want me to start with that?
Yeah, I'll let you start.
So we are the community.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
When you work in this job, you live in this community, you are the community. I can speak for myself when I say that I didn't take this job as a job. I took this job because I love Indianapolis and I love the community that we have here in Indianapolis. And I love all the people who live in Indianapolis. That is what makes Indianapolis special. And so I'm always hesitant when people want to talk about an us versus them mentality, because I don't see that. I know when I am out and about in the community, I cannot tell you the number of times, even if I am just at the grocery store, I can't tell you, if I'm dressed like this, I can't tell you the number of times of people who stop me and just say thank you, or just they just have a kind word of appreciation for the department. So I know that there are issues. I'm not going to deny that. But I also think there is a lot of really good work that does go on between the police department and the community. And
agreed.
Thank you. And we can do this job because the community allows us to do this job. And we know that. And so I took over as commander of training back in January of 2020, just before COVID hit. And we had to make all of those other changes. But training still falls under me, and that is still extremely, extremely important to me. And that is our message to our new recruits and our veteran officers, is that you are a part of the community. This job that you do is a piece of the community. We work, and the work that we do works to keep the community safe, so that everyone who lives in our community can enjoy the wonderful opportunities that exist within our community. And I think it's important that we remind not just our community members, but our officers, that there is so much good work and goodwill that does go on, that I think sometimes that gets forgotten. And it means so much to me when people stop me when I'm out and about, just to say kind words or talk about a good experience that they had with officers. Now, I will be frank and also say that sometimes they talk about experiences that weren't great. And I am working every single day to ensure that our officers have the tools that they need to have those communication skills, to be able to do things and understand things, like the post you were talking about, where one of our officers was lying on the ground with somebody who was probably having if I'm recalling it correctly, was having a little bit of a crisis situation. And so not every person is going to be treated the same way or needs to be treated the same way in a situation like that. And so it's important for our officers to understand the boundaries, but also understand what someone may need in that situation. So in
Yeah.
that situation, that young man may have needed somebody to be close to him, or that may have made it worse for him. But it's important that our officers understand that and that they're able to read those signs and have those communication skills to put them into situations to help people in situations like that.
Love it. Officer Burris?
Thank you for the question. Right, it
Sure.
is a very dynamic question in
Thank you.
itself, and there is no one answer that's going to fulfill that question.
Sure.
Right,
Sure.
but I believe as well, right, as the chief has said, I think it's those opportunities that we take as officers to engage with the community,
Hmm.
whether it is attending functions that they put together, whether it's getting out of our cars and just walking the neighborhood, walking the beat, whether it's taking time when we're pumping our gas or at the grocery store to just say hello to someone. I think those small interactions help build those relationships and help us to maintain those. I had an opportunity a few years ago to work with a community center. They asked for an officer while I was working East District
Okay.
to come and speak with the youth at the community. And that's the Falege Hewitt Center
Hmm.
with Mrs. Stair as their program organizer. 20 to 30 children at this center. And we had some good dialogue, good conversation, not scripted. They were able to ask me whatever. Um, and that's a relationship that I still maintain to this day. Those children are doing some phenomenal things. They're giving back to the community, and they wanted a police perspective. But now there are children there that are interested in becoming the police. There are children there that are now interested on how can we do more in collaboration with the police. And I would also like to say too, I think every single day our officers for IMPD are out doing amazing work.
Hmm.
It doesn't get televised. It doesn't get shown on social media all the time. Officers are buying groceries for individuals, changing tires, pushing cars out of the road, getting animals out of homes. Whatever the community needs, our officers are taking the time to ensure that if there's a service that we can provide, we're doing that every single day, no matter what the call may be, no matter how insignificant it may be to somebody else. Our officers are dedicated to service. And I think that there's a lot of conversation about the us versus them, right?
Sure.
But I also believe if we're willing to have those conversations and we come to those conversations with some type of understanding and a mutual respect for one another, I think we will be more willing to walk away with solutions, right? Because
Agreed.
if we're just coming into those conversations and I'm pointing out all of your flaws, you're pointing out all of my flaws, and then we're walking away from the table and we're like, we did our job, right?
Yeah.
It's not really relationship building. It's
Right.
in that moment where I can say, I see where you're coming from. I see why that affects you. I see why that impacts you that way. Well, here are my intentions. This is where I was coming from. And to have the other person in that conversation to be receptive, right? A lot
Hmm.
of times we're not receptive to the other person's point of view and
Agreed.
perspective. We're always trying to deflect or defend, right?
Hmm.
Why we feel the way. And that's on both sides, right? The
Agreed.
community wants the police to understand why they feel the way that they feel. The police want the community to understand why we do what we do, right? And so if we just take a moment and just be open-minded to actually hearing what the person is saying and not just listening so that we can respond, but listening so that we can gain a better understanding of one another, I think it creates that turn where we are now walking side by side and we are no longer a versus anymore.
Sure. I
Can I,
I
before
truly
we move on
understand that.
from there, can I
Go
add
ahead.
something to that?
Sure. Absolutely.
And Officer Burris is 100% correct in everything that she said. Bravo to you for saying that. I also think that we need to normalize and make it okay to have these difficult conversations, because I also think that a lot of people are coming to the table and they are thinking about what is my response going to be. instead of exactly what she said, not listening to what's being said, but thinking, what is my response going to be? And missing everything that's being said because everybody is afraid to have these conversations.
Agreed.
So, thank you. Right?
Agreed. I mean, when I was the liaison, you know, just what you two are saying was one of the toughest things I've ever done, simply because it's taking all these different it's languages, all these different languages, creating one universal language that crosses all these barriers.
Absolutely.
To get everyone to understand. And it was a challenge of saying, okay, I understand your perspective. Have you thought about this perspective? And I understand this perspective. Have you thought about this perspective? You're spot on with that. I do think that that's something that needs to happen. But again, just like Chief said, it's got to be the right people in the room. That's the challenge. It can't be a clout chaser. It can't be the person that's just in the community to be on the television. It has to be someone who actually has a heart for the community, coming in, having that conversation, and being able to speak on some things without it being this contentious type of ordeal. It has to be like, we're coming in to handle business, and let's talk about it civilly and bring some solutions to the table. I definitely think it's necessary.
Absolutely. I recently did some training as well. And in that training, the conversation was the role that you play. The role that you want. What are you going to do as the individual when you leave the table? What is the one thing that you are going to actionably do to make this change, make this conversation change? What conversations are you going to have when you go home to your community of influence? What is it going to be actionable for you to make this change in the right direction? And I think when we start to talk about actionable things that we can do, the conversation dynamics change.
Yeah. And I will say this for all who are watching, you guys have done a tremendous job working with Toby Miller and those guys on the calls. I mean, I've been on the calls for all the police action shootings. So I will honestly say that there's been some transparency. There have been solutions. There have been solutions that have come from the community. There's been a listening ear from IMPD. I've definitely seen that happen. So it's a challenging thing because most of the things that are deemed bad are truly exploited to a high degree. Those are the things that we see on the news. So I'm gonna challenge Chief and tell her with the command staff, you guys are gonna have to push some great PR. I think it's necessary because there are some people doing some great things in the community. I want to touch on some stuff and get get both of your opinions, because it's two different perspectives, and I'm glad that Alexa picked you two, because it's two different perspectives. What's happening in our community, as it relates to just the onslaught of violence that we've been seeing, and what is it that you believe that the community can do to help IMPD as it relates to the violence?
Samone, you want to start, and then I'll follow up?
Sure. And this is a personal. This is not an agency thing. This is a personal thing.
Sure.
So as a PIO, I do respond to these scenes, right? Multiple homicides where community members have lost their lives, right? And the unfortunate reality is oftentimes those community members look like me and you.
Sure.
And so there is a very sad dynamic that is taking place in the community where we have normalized violence, where we have normalized not taking accountability, where we have normalized it's somebody else's responsibility to fix it, not mine. Where we have normalized parents not being actively involved, where we have normalized this is the only way I know and there's no other way. The conversation of gun violence or violence through the use of guns or other weapons has been a very key talking point, right? So the education for our community when it comes to gun violence, or when it comes to proper use and storage of guns, The police can only do so much. The police can only say so much.
Right.
It falls into the hands of our community, our coaches, our churches, our leaders in our community to actually get out and start having these conversations in the community, outside of buildings, outside of structures, because the youth that are being impacted, let's be honest, they're not coming to church. They're not
Preach.
coming to anything that the police are going to put together, right? They're not going to go to the Boys and Girls Club. They're just not going to those places. So if we continue to put programming in those spaces,
Ooh,
those
Samone.
children don't have access to that, right?
Samone, you causing trouble.
This is a personal. This is my personal, right? This is my.
Let me
I live in the
interject.
community, right?
Let me interject really quickly, because I see something, and this is not them saying this is Greg Meriweather. Money has really tainted it.
Ugh.
I mean, money has tainted you all's aid, because anybody can jump in and say that they're an advocate. But when you look and you see what we can call the news all the time,
yeah,
and say, I got these kids, and put it out there, and everybody say, oh my God, you're doing all this work, yet the murders are still happening because you don't have those kids. But we look at it and we say, well, we take those kids that are not on a wayward path, and then they exploit those kids as being the kids that are on the wayward path. And then all this money is being generated and nothing is changing because you're not getting the right kids. And that, to me, is not an aid to IMPD. To me, that's a hindrance, because what people are doing is then all of a sudden the blame falls on you all, because they're not thinking that you don't want martial law policing. They want you all to act like you're supposed to get in front of the homicide. You're not. You're a reactionary committee. And when it's all said and done, we have to do a better job. And I will say this. Governmentally, we have to do a better job of the criteria of what an activist or advocate is. And it can't just be people who are coming to get a check. Going back to us saying the right people have to be in the room at the table. It can't be those people who are like, I get to write this down and write these kids' names down and pile up this list and turn it in so I can get grant money, because it's not going to help you all. I'm just going to say that. Okay, I'll let you finish. I'll let you finish, and then Chief, you can finish out.
But I think, like you say, it's getting to the children that are being impacted, those fatherless homes, where you have the single mom or the single dad that does need resources, and giving them the right resources, right?
Correct.
And just ensuring that we meet them where they are. And again, you have to get out into the community. You have to knock on those doors. You have to engage in the community, whether you do it section by section, block by block. That's just what it's going to take. All hands on deck. We're out walking our beat as the police. I encourage the community to get out and walk the beats as well, and get out and learn the community to see what they need. The police will continue to do their part. I believe that we're going to still answer our 911 calls. We're still going to show up and provide what we have available to our extent. But it takes that collaborative response for us to do that. And if we don't, unfortunately, we're going to keep seeing what we're seeing. I hope it changes. My heart of hearts is I hope it changes.
Well, you know what? Part of the hope is doing the work. Chief.
So I thank you for bringing this up. And I think this is all full circle, right? This goes back to having those difficult conversations where sometimes you have to say the quiet thing out loud.
Yep.
And I think you're both spot on with what's going on. But I also think it's important to say that this violence issue and this gun issue is not just an Indianapolis problem, but it is a nationwide problem. And to Simone's point of we've normalized violence, we've normalized guns. We have to have those conversations. They're not popular, they're not easy. Everybody wants to tiptoe around it, but we have to have those conversations. Our young people, our children are struggling, and they're dying, and they're going down a difficult path. And what are we collectively as a community and as a society doing to help them? The easy answer is to look at IMPD and look at people who are dressed like Samone and myself and say, it's your fault, it's your responsibility to fix it. What are you doing? we're doing everything that we can do. And another issue has to be the fact that every problem is not to be solved by just the police. And there are so many things that are being put on our doorstep that we don't have the resources or the tools or the expertise to get in front of.
Yeah.
This is a community nationwide effort to make this change. Samone's correct. The kids who need the help the most are not coming to those programs. They're not coming into contact ahead of time with law enforcement. And that is sad and it is unfortunate. We have to put the people in place who have the resources and the skills. It's not just government, it's not just law enforcement, who can help get ahead of this. The things that we're hearing that some young people are sharing, and they're not necessarily sharing it with us, they're fearful. The trauma, the fear that they are experiencing, which is leading to them carrying guns and leading to all of this. We have to stop this. And that's not our role. And I'm not trying to push aside our responsibilities.
No, it's not your role.
Thank you.
It is not your role. I scream that it is not your role. It's not your role. You know, I have some people on here with some statements. One, Lori Miller Vaughn said, citizens need training too. We can't put it all on the officer's shoulders. And it starts at home. Teach your children and yourself how to conduct yourselves in front of officers. Don't push the envelope all the time. We are so angry that we aren't thinking before we react in a negative way. I'm speaking on my situation. Others have different situations. I agree. I agree with that to an extent. Yeah, I think that I think there are less cases than more as it relates to people doing the right thing when it comes to engaging in law enforcement. We've just seen some bad cases, and I think that sells more. So I agree, Lord. And then we have Freddie Edwards Jr. He said resources are the key. Parents can't be at home and teach and monitor children when they are always working and away from home. I'm going to challenge Freddie on that because my parents did it. And I think that one of the things, you know, and I'll say this, one of the things that I believe is missing holistically in the community is discipline. Because when it's all said and done, my parents could go to work. My father passed away in 2018. So my dad back in the day would put a list. He was a military guy. He would put a list together. I didn't realize this until my adult years. I said, dang, Dad put a list together every single day of the summer for chores.
Yes.
And was like, until you get down this list, then at the bottom, he said, then you can go outside. Mm-hmm. And by the time we got down the list, it was time for him to almost be at home. But nonetheless, exactly. So when you look at this thing called discipline, you know, there's been a bad stigma that's being sold through the media, that's being sold in the government that says our children don't have anything to do. And I say, I see uncut yards, and you wonder why our property values are decreasing. I see areas of blight. I remember sweeping the sidewalks, sweeping the porch. I cleaned gutters. Kids don't know how to iron. Kids don't know how to wash dishes. Kids don't know how to mop, sweep. None of those things. There is tons of stuff to be done. And if we took that mindset in our community and we started working from the inside out, it makes a whole different world. It changes the whole dynamic, because you're learning the first thing about being a good citizen is being a good citizen in your house.
Yes.
And we have to teach that. There's tons to be done. The sad thing is we've made kids don't have anything to do as fun. And that's the problem. Life ain't going to always, we've taught people that life is supposed to just be fun all the time. You got work to do. And the means to your fun comes by your work. Mm-hmm. And we've made it to where we've reversed this culture to where kids are like, I don't have anything to do. Clean your room. Let's start there. I guarantee you'll feel a whole lot better when you're out of that clutter.
We my husband and I just had this same conversation, ironically, right? And a friend of mine called me and she said, Samone, kids love you. Why do kids love you? And I said, because kids love discipline, kids love correction, kids love to not be in the presence of a pushover. Sure. And when you can guide a child, when you can correct them and turn them in the right direction, they respect you, they love you, they want to learn from you, they want to glean from you, because you are showing them that there's a right and a wrong way.
That's real. That's real. Shout out to Anthony Hampton. He just said that these youngsters are begging for discipline. That's the thing. But we have too many coddle agents. I mean, it is so sad. You know, I'll tell you both. It's so sad because a lot of people are eating off of this. And it's making your lives hell. Because I'm tired of hearing agencies say that was my kid that committed that murder, or that was my kid who got shot. And I'm like, well, what are you doing in your agency? What are you doing in your organization? If those are your kids, my kid would never come there if those are your kids. It's just real. And how do you keep getting funding? I'm just on a rant. All right, we got a few more minutes. I'm gonna get you guys out of here. Just give me 5 more minutes. I know you got work to do. As far as moving forward, what do you all see? I went to the it's like the evolution of law enforcement at John Jay some years ago in New York. What do you guys see as a changing thing? You know, just a couple minutes apiece, but what do you guys see changing in law enforcement too that you believe will make it better?
Technology. Mm-hmm. I think technology is a huge piece to help us move forward and help us do things in a more safe and a more efficient manner. I think we have to change the conversation and the perspective around law enforcement. The job that we do every day is helping people and talking to people. That is the majority of the work that we do every single day. And I think that we need to do a better job of communicating to the young people who are looking for a job that that's what you can come here and do. There are so many opportunities to expand your skill set here at IMPD, but the majority of the work that you're going to do is solve problems for people. Yeah. And that may be that you're showing up and somebody's having a really bad day and they are really distraught and they need your patience and your understanding, but you're still solving a problem for them. Something has still happened that has gotten them in that position. And so I think for me, it's about changing the dialogue around what law enforcement is. It's public safety. And so maybe we start there by calling it public safety as opposed to just always calling it law enforcement.
Yeah. Enforcement is a tough word, isn't it?
Now the enforcement piece is there, right? It's there. Back to that accountability and that discipline piece.
Yeah.
That enforcement piece has to be there. But if we're dealing with safety and we're dealing with response and we're dealing with problem solving, then I personally believe that the enforcement piece can go down. We have to help people solve problems. We are the most visible arm of government. And because of that, we get a lot of hate and a lot of pushback and a lot of frustration from people that is not necessarily always just directed at us. And we understand that. Sure. So I think for me personally, we have to focus more and invest more in the technology piece, but we also have to really have a good dialogue and understanding about what public safety and law enforcement is and what that role is. And we have to come to that conclusion together as a community about what our role is going to be, what they want from us, and what we have the capabilities of doing.
I'm definitely going to get with you and Chief on that because I think that's a great suggestion. The other thing, really quickly before you answer, Officer Burris, is someone asked, what civilian careers are available that can help break the barriers between the community and IMPD? Anything?
You want me to take that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if the person is able to respond back, but are they specifically looking at professional staff positions within IMPD? Sworn officers?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, we have those pieces too. And you know, social work and community outreach is probably what pops into my mind most quickly as to what can help bridge that gap between the community and the police. If you're not wanting to be a law enforcement officer. Okay. That would be, you know, we have all different kinds of positions that are professional staff positions, administrative positions within the police department. We have public safety officer positions, which you take crash reports, you help drive the wagon. You're working with people every single day. We have public assistance officer positions that you're taking reports. You're taking reports from people in person. You're taking reports from people over the phone. Those are segues into the IMPD and into community service that you don't have to be a fully sworn merit police officer. And I hope that's what your listener was looking for.
Sure, absolutely. Good one. All right, Samone, what's your take on what could be better or what's happening that could make it better?
I definitely think the conversation and change of perception, right? This is a very honorable career full of dynamic people who love Indianapolis, who love the community. A lot of people who put on this uniform every day who want to make a difference and make a change.
Yeah.
And that having that conversation with our community more often than the uses of force, having that conversation with our community about why officers to continue to show up every day in spite of all of the negative conversation, in spite of all of the perceived hate, right?
Yeah.
These officers still make a decision every day to clock in, come to work, and still do good police work. And then having the conversation too on the other hand of the community. Media is really good about sharing the traumatic incidents about the community.
Yeah.
They're really good about pushing, that fear concept.
Yeah.
But
Don't bleed, it don't lead.
Indianapolis is full of wonderful community members, wonderful, hardworking community members. 42nd and Post Road, 10th in Arlington, 10th in Rural. There are some very hardworking community members that deserve a safe place to live, a safe place to work, and they are not getting the media coverage that they deserve. The good work that's going on in the community is not highlighted as often as the bad things that are going on. There are a lot of good things that are happening in the Indianapolis community that the community is pushing forward itself. We want to hear those stories. We want to be pulled in on those stories. We want to take part in that. And we applaud the community for their hard work.
Sure.
The solve rate for our homicide and aggravated assaults, the arrests that we are getting, that comes from the community taking accountability and ownership for the safety of their neighborhoods. We thank them for that work. We thank them for working with us and getting us that pertinent information. Continuing to have good working relationships like that with our community, we can change this dynamic. We don't have to wait until the media gets on board. We don't have to wait till other government officials get on board. Us as the police agency in this city, community members and the people that live here, we can change our story. We can change that dynamic.
I love it. Well, that's why we have this platform. No apologies, please. Of course, it's an acronym, N.A.P, because I was like, still have to represent the 317. But I thank you. I thank you both for coming. I know I have, going back to journalism with Catherine Cummings, I know, people tend to think that Greg is very challenging. I am very challenging. But at the same time, I think that, over the course of time, I have learned that we can have these conversations and get some stuff out in the open that people are not aware of and teach our community. So that's why it's no apologies. It's because we're unapologetically going to give it and let people know some things that they don't know without being apologetic. And so I'm thankful that you ladies are doing your thing, helping the community, growing. And please, I know you guys are doing it, so I know this, but keep pushing it and get some recruits because we know it's necessary. Okay. But I just thank you. You guys have a great one. Stay safe out there. And anytime you guys need to come back through, you just let me know and we'll get you on. Okay.
Thank you for all the work you're doing, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you. You guys have a great one. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Man, so that's why we do this. When it's all said and done, we are working to bring people on to talk about some stuff that we normally, don't talk about. I know that it would have been easy, to just have a balmy conversation with law enforcement, but at the same time, I'm like, why? Sometimes we just need to chat it out and get some information out there so that people are aware of something. So I want to go back through some of these comments. I see Martin Riley. He said, I agree with what's being said, and I would love to add two things. Where is the love for one another? Music that is being played on the side of, or the music being played has no love in it. You know, it's such an influencer. You know, when you look and you hear what's out there. I remember Shauna Majors and I had this conversation some years ago, and I was like, Shauna, you know, it would be awesome if Radio One took some social responsibility for the music that's being spewed into the ears of people every single day. There used to be a sticker that went on video games that, you know, and since so much is streamed now, it's very difficult to put it's very difficult to put a sticker on what's streamed. So video games now get bought online and you can just upload it. You can listen to music all day just from streaming agencies. We need there to be something, a buffer of some sort that comes through radio, that may come through TV, and it's not just this thing that you read real quick, but to say that the stuff that's going in your head could possibly, you know, cause you to think violently. And I think it's necessary. I think we need more PSAs in music to make people understand that you don't want this to be your reality. This is not reality. This is music that you're listening to that could have some stuff in it that could cause your mind to think awkwardly. But I definitely think that there needs to be something that's done about that, because I do believe that everything that we're putting into our systems, young minds, underdeveloped minds, the music that's being put into their system, the visuals from TV that are being put into their systems are hurting them more than they are helping. I believe that totally. And so, you know, I just want to say this, man, you know, again, no apologies, please, is a show, you know, that I want people to come on and we can chop it up, we can talk it up, because it's necessary. If you want to donate to the show, we've got a Cash App, no apologies, please, because we want to take this to a studio to where we can start having studio audience, bringing people in, a whole nine, and talk about all the things that go on, not just in the community, because we want to bring people on that are doing business. We want to bring on some guests that people are, you know, some celebrity guests, so that we can talk to those people as well, and, you know, just keep it moving, because it's definitely something that we want to grow in our community. So with that being said, man, let's get to the verse of the day today. Is, I'll say it's John 12:8. It says, you will always have the poor among you, but you will not always have me. And, you know, the thing about the poor is we can't continue to exploit the poor. I think that there's a hustle happening in our community. And when I listen to, you know, just the ladies that we talk to from law enforcement, it is a tough thing when the wrong people have hold of our kids. And a lot of people are handing their kids over to the wrong people. And when it says there, the poor will always be among you, let me say this: poor does not equal money. You have people with poor health. You have people with poor mentality. You have people with poor communications. You have all sorts. It doesn't say it doesn't qualify what poor is. It just says the poor will be among you. We have to understand that if we operate correctly, being the bold people we are, the believers that we are, it's like we know they're going to be there, but what are we doing to change the poor? And I don't mean poor in pocket, but what are we doing to change the poor to being rich, to being wealthy, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of community, a wealth of helping, a wealth of family, a wealth of friends? The poor will be among you, but we got to do something to change it. That's just my mentality. And that's why we do this. So, you know, when it's all said and done, man, I love this. Tomorrow, we're going to have Sabeko Jawanza. Is that it? Sabeko. He's going to come through, man. You know, he's going to talk about his journey and with his mom, with civil rights, the whole nine. Thursday, we're going to have Anthony Hampton on the show. That should be a fun show, because I'm going to let Hamp do what Hamp does. Hamp, if you're listening, I might let you get in a cuss word or two throughout the show. That's just me being your brother. We're gonna cut it short today, but it's been fun. Again, if you want to help the show, please by all means, you see the Cash App. Again, the other thing is this: if you think that there's someone that you deem that should be on the show, uh, shoot me an email. Shoot me an email so that we can get them on, because we want to talk to people that you want to hear from. We definitely want to talk to people you want to hear from. So yeah, shoot us an email at blackonblackllc@gmail.com. And if there's somebody that we can get on and we need to talk to, you let me know. We'll do our level best to find them. So man, without further ado, it's been your brother, Greg Meriweather. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. With the question always asked, the question is always asked, what can we do to help? Share the voice. Don't be afraid to share the message. These are good messages. These are educational messages that people should be hearing in our community to make our community better. So with all that said, man, share the show. I love you. Have a great one. Peace.